Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. I'm so excited. And I just can't hide it. Sorry. Okay. I'm just trying to pump up some energy here. I am so happy to be here. My name is Abisola Akinwande. I am a forever excited student of life. I am a vessel of God. I am a wife. I am a mom of two. I am a nurse. I am a coach. I am a mentor. And I am the creator of the Piece Your Puzzle Coaching Academy. And I am so excited to be here. So excited to be here at the Piece Your Puzzle Coaching Academy, which is evolving as I am evolving. We love helping driven, ambitious, courageous, heart-centered women to disrupt the cycles of negative beliefs, negative limiting thoughts, negative energies that are on their lives so that they can live more purposeful, peaceful, prosperous lives the way God intended. And that's been my mission because that's been my journey. And I'm so happy to be here because I have so many nuggets for you guys as we talk about shifting from self-sacrifice to self-acceptance. Now, as a nurse and as a mom and as a wife and as a sister and as a daughter, how many of you guys can relate? All of these hats that we wear, especially as women, it is easy to get lost. It is easy to feel like, who am I? And that was exactly the journey that I went through. It was a very trying period within my life after being a mom, being a wife, where I just lost myself. And that's the inspiration for this talk today, going from self-sacrifice to self-acceptance. So what this talk is going to be, what I am going to present to you guys, is the 5 strategies, the 5 different levels and layers that I had to go through to get to my own self-acceptance. And I know it's going to be packed with so many nuggets of useful information for you to use and to apply to your life and your situation, and how to get you more in tune with the life God truly has in store for you. So the first thing I want to start out with is a question. I want to pose a question. How many of you have ever felt like you don't know who you are beyond the hats that you wear? How many of you? I have definitely felt that way. I definitely felt that way as a mom and as a wife, and just in general, as with all the hats that I named before. I felt like I did not know who I was anymore. It's so easy for us as women to get into patterns of self-sacrifice and not even know that we're in it. So the first stage, really, along the journey to get into self-acceptance, for me, was realizing that, okay, there's a problem. There's a problem here. And I don't know what it is. I don't know how it got here. I don't know what's going on, but I know there's a problem. How many of you guys know when you may be doing too much? For me, I knew I was doing too much when I was neglecting to take care of myself. I knew I was doing too much when I would wake up exhausted. I knew I was sacrificing myself when I would point fingers at everyone else and wish that if they just change, everything would be okay. I knew that. I knew that there was a problem. Along my journey, one thing that I realized, even as a young adult, even as a kid, I realized that there were some things that I naturally wanted to do, naturally gravitated towards, but never really got the structure or the support that I wanted to fully develop myself. And I mentioned being a kid because when we get into these roles and when we get into these habits of sacrificing ourselves, especially as moms, especially as healers, as health professionals, when we get into the habit of sacrificing ourselves, it really comes down to what cycles have you been used to from when you were younger? And I'm going to tap more into this as we go along. But the first step is realizing that there is a problem and setting an intention to do something differently. Setting an intention, making a commitment to yourself that something must change. That's the first step. Now, when I did that, I did not know what was in store. I did not know the journey that I would take. I did not know.
I am done, and could you help me? Because when I press one of them, it don't come on.
This is my son, my 4-year-old son here. All right. But I did not know that everything that would come about when I started the journey to looking within me. And it was amazing to see how things unraveled. So first, one, you set the intention. You set the intention to do something differently. You set the intention to look at yourself first. You set the intention to no longer point fingers at someone else or no longer expect someone else to give you what you haven't given yourself. The second step for me was to be aware. Be aware. How many of us are aware of exactly why or how or when we act in certain ways? How many of us are actually aware of our triggers as to why we respond in self-sacrificing ways? How many of us are actually conscious of the way that we respond and react to things? I had to become aware. I had to realize that I was the common domination, the common denominator in everything that was happening in my life. Aware of, okay, if my husband says one thing, how does that make me feel? Am I responding? How am I responding? Why am I responding this way? In awareness, a lot comes out. And I know as women, our emotions, what? When we are triggered, when I was triggered, I know I usually beat myself up first, but I usually respond in anger and annoyance and frustration and just a lot of emotions. So being aware of what emotions come up is huge. It's huge for your process to accepting yourself. We were taught at a young age, taught to suppress a lot of our emotions. And when we're trying to get to a level of self-acceptance, we must confront those emotions head on, heart on, actions on in order to change. So being aware opened my eyes up to me. Open me up to me. Now, another thing about me is I'm a Sagittarius. I love knowledge. I love investigating things. I love nature. I love peace, as you can see. And they all called me around 18 years old. I got into a period where I became more self-aware. And self-awareness is something that goes in and out sometimes, in and out. It's so easy to place blame or look without. And self-awareness is really looking within. So at 18, the first person I was introduced to who I would say gave me the permission to really own my voice was an author named Ralph Waldo Emerson and his essay on self-reliance. And this essay really opened my eyes to the fact that I had a guidance system within me that wanted to do certain things, that wanted to experience certain things in life. And it was okay to trust that guidance system. And that guidance system, honestly, it didn't want me to be a nurse. And this is why my first degree was in cultural anthropology. That was me following the investigative kind of tunnel that, oh, I like these courses. Oh, I like talking about culture. I like trying to see how cultures affect us as human beings. So that awareness was there. But somewhere along the line from 18 to getting older, to being a mom, to being a wife, it switched off for me. You know, I hid my dreams. I denied my dreams. I didn't respect my dreams. So the understanding, so we talked about setting the intention, we talked about self-awareness, and we talked about self-understanding was the third step that I had to go through. Understanding why I shut myself off to me. Why is it that I put so many other people in front of me? What made me feel so valueless, so unimportant, so self-sacrificing to the point where I was hurting myself in the sense that I wasn't eating right, I wasn't sleeping right, I was very critical of myself, I was just very down and mean to me. Anybody can relate? I heard a quote one time say, "We are our own worst critics." Oftentimes we look at different people and we have this fear of judgment, but in reality, we judge ourselves first. We judge ourselves first. And in self-understanding, I got to realize that the reason why I was so much more comfortable sacrificing myself, self-sacrificing, was because I felt like I had to. I felt like I had to, out of obligation, out of receiving love, out of a fear of abandonment. Anybody understand what I'm saying? See, to go a little deeper into my story, when I was 10 years old, my parents and my siblings, I have 3 other siblings, we traveled to Nigeria for my grandfather's burial. And at 10 years old, me and my naivety, and just in my naive nature, thinking we were just going for the burial and we were going to come back to the US as a family, that wasn't the case. Me and my older brother were left to live in Nigeria for 2 years, and we were in separate places. I was living with a family that I had never known before then at 10 years old. And again, I'll say I'm Nigerian. My parents are Nigerian. And this is something that many Nigerian parents do to help instill their children with the respect, the values, and just a way of life so that we can appreciate what we have. And as a 10-year-old, I didn't take it like that. Looking back, I can understand exactly what was happening. But as a 10-year-old, I felt abandoned by my family. I felt guilty. I felt like I did something wrong because sometimes they used to threaten us with the fact that, oh, if you misbehave, I'm going to ship you to Nigeria. I'm going to ship you back home as a punishment. So I felt like I did something wrong. I felt like I wasn't good enough to be with my family anymore. And in that moment, in those 2 years, another side of me developed. I was quiet. I was no longer my extroverted, fun-loving, just want to play and just want to have fun, just carefree self. It wasn't that anymore. I was observing my environment. I was cautious about what I was doing. I was taken care of. I was definitely taken care of as one of her children. She didn't do anything wrong to me at all. But these feelings came from not understanding what was going on, came from those feelings of abandonment, not good enough, and in those 2 years, I started to clue into things. Oh, if I help with this, then someone notices me. Oh, if I do this, then I get attention by someone asking me maybe what I want. And that's when the people pleaser in me went full, like that's when it was developed full blown. Anybody know about that people pleaser person within themselves? The need to please others is one sure way to get to a level of self-sacrifice that is hard to come out of. And I just explained to you why I did it. I know each and every one of you also has your reason, everyone who can relate. And if you can relate, say, I feel you. Say, I understand where you're coming from. I'm not able to see the comments, but I definitely know there are people out there who have felt this way. I've coached women. I talk to people. I ask questions. I've always been a question asker. And I know I'm not alone. People pleaser. The idea that if I please this person, then they will love me. So that all came out of the understanding. You remember? Intention, you set the intention, no longer self-sacrificing. You become self-aware. You get curious about yourself. Get curious about what you do, what you think, and how you feel. After you set the intention and start being self-aware, you develop self-understanding, where you start to dig deeper and ask the why questions. Once you understand why you act the way you do, once you understand why you self-sacrifice, once you understand why you feel like you are not important, why you feel like you are not enough, once you understand why you feel that you have to do more for others than you do yourself, which is nothing wrong with it. But if it's affecting you negatively to do that, then there is something that does need to be looked at. Once you understand that, then comes the interesting part. What do you do with it? And that's the question I had to ask myself. And if you go on my page, all last year was my journey to healing. And that's step number 4. Self-healing. Nobody can heal you but you, because nobody knows you better than you. It is no one's responsibility, regardless of who put those wounds there. And I had to come to that acceptance too, because a lot happened in those 2 years I was in Nigeria. I was molested by a teacher. I did have those feelings. I did feel abandoned. And I had to choose to let it all go so I can take me back. So I can create the me that is still in evolution and will continue to be evolving till the day I die. So we had that power. From birth, we had that power. We had the power to say what we wanted. We had the power to scream and shout when we were hungry. We had the power within us to grow from a baby to who you see right in front of you today. God infused all of that in us already. It's just we need to tap back into it. We need to tap back into ourselves. And the self-healing, boy, that does wonders for tapping back into who God created us to be. The self-healing, including healing my inner child. And I help women do this. Healing my inner child. Being the parent, being the ideal parent I would have wanted for my inner child that felt abandoned, that felt alone, that felt guilty, that felt ashamed with being molested. Healing that child. Healing my inner teenager. Because my teenage self, when I got back to the United States, it didn't end. My teenage self didn't know where to fit in anymore. Everything had changed. My family dynamics had changed. My friends had changed. My environment had changed. And I felt helpless to it. I felt I had no control over what was happening. So I did what I was told. I followed the rules. I did what I was told to the best of my abilities. I've always been a little bit of a rebel, but I followed, my parents. I told, and I did. Not only was I coming into that, I came back to the United States and my mother was different. She was dealing with the emotional tools of everything she had been going through. So I had to heal all of that. And it's a process, but it's so worth it because you realize how much of you was stuck in the past. And that's why you self-sacrifice. With healing it, you bring yourself in the present. You're able to see clearly what you have, and you're able to envision and align with what you want to create. So inner child healing, inner teenage healing, I had to forgive my parents first and foremost. Our family is our first mode to understanding life. Forgive them for the knowledge they did know and the knowledge they didn't know, for not knowing how they did things and how it would affect me, for not giving me the tools that I felt like I needed. But at the same time, they gave me what they were meant to give me. So forgiving my parents, forgiving my friends and family, anyone who had offended me, And all in all, forgiving myself for being the hardest on me. I had to forgive me. So that was a journey. And that was my journey to healing. And I sit before you right now, fully accepting me just as I am. The good, the bad, the ugly, the pretty, the not so pretty. And I am in a space where I feel and I connect and I think on a greater level because all of it is no longer attached to my past. When we are able to reclaim all that we give to others, all the energy we spend thinking and feeling and believing these beliefs that really keep us stuck in a unhealthy pattern, when we reclaim that, there is a grounding, there is a strength, there is I can do all things through Christ who strengthened me. There is I can lay down my burdens easier. I mean, it's just a magical feeling of I am in control of my life. I can choose when and how much I help someone. I can set boundaries on how much help I give. I can set boundaries on how much, on not letting someone overstep or mistreat me or treat me in a way I wouldn't treat myself. It's an automatic thing. And you may lose friends, you may lose family. It may be hard to maintain some relationships, but you gain yourself in that process. You gain confidence, you gain self-esteem, you gain a deep sense of self-worth, you gain the ability to control your life. You leave the victim and you become a victor in the present moment. You may not have everything that you want right now, but when you fully accept yourself, you fully believe that you can do whatever you have to do. You can tap into everything you have to tap into. You can create anything you want in this life, and there is nothing and no one holding you back anymore. All the little fights, all the, oh, he doesn't support me, they don't support me, so I can't do it. It goes away because you support yourself. You support yourself. And it's the most perfect support anybody can give. It is the most in-depth, in-tune support you can give yourself. No one can give you support like you can give yourself support. So I really want you to be encouraged. So we talked about these steps. My journey. I had to realize that the self-sacrifice was not working for me. I had to set an intention to change. I had to become aware of my actions, my thoughts, and my feelings. I had to understand why I think, feel, and act the way I do. I